Come on, you fucking apes! Do you want to live forever? Ugh! Welcome back, everyone. This is Ryan from Ryan Reviews, and welcome to day number 9 of 100 films in 100 days. Today I decided to watch Starship Troopers from 1997. This film stars Casper Van Dien, Jake Busey, and Neil Patrick Harris. Those are the only 3 actors I could remember. But let me get into the plot a little bit. It was also directed by Paul Verhoeven, I forgot to mention that. So the film is about a character named Johnny Rico who fights against these arachnid creatures from this planet, far away from them. And the humans are at war with these creatures. And basically, it's just about Johnny Rico being a soldier and fighting against the arachnids. So a lot of people like to make a comparison with this film and say that it's the anti-Star Trek, because in Star Trek, society is very advanced and there's no more war, there's no more real conflict, except when there's some diplomatic relations falling apart between other empires like the Klingon Empire or the Romulans. And this film is really all about violence and just killing and fighting and attacking things that you don't really know about just for the sake of it. I particularly noticed some comparisons between this film and Star Trek in scenes where spaceships are being flown around and piloted. There's a lot of mannerisms and dialogue that are taken straight out of Starfleet Protocol from the Star Trek television shows. One thing I noticed about the humans in this film, especially when there's a scene where a general decides to save himself instead of go out and fight the bugs, I felt like that's very similar, at least in the way that the people reacted to that, to the Klingons from Star Trek, because they feel it's better to die fighting on the battlefield than to live and commit an act of cowardice in their eyes. I definitely saw that comparison between them, and I think I could see some more if I looked a little bit deeper. I know a good bit about Star Trek, but I'm no expert by any stretch of the imagination. I just realized another comparison. In Star Trek, in order to become a citizen in Klingon society, you have to join the military, just like in this film. So in terms of the acting in this film, there's nothing really much to complain about. It works. It is what it is, you know? It's a late 90s big budget action movie. It's not going to be anything out of the ordinary. I did really enjoy looking at Jake Busey's goofy looking face throughout the whole thing. That was fun. And also whenever Neil Patrick Harris came on screen, he was charismatic and cool, and I liked the way he acts. I think he just exudes this sort of raw personality. A lot of the writing is very silly as well, but that's not only because it's a late 90s action blockbuster film, but also it's done intentionally. Paul Verhoeven knows exactly what he's doing here. The whole satire of this film basically is, what if fascism took over and none of us noticed? And that's where it kind of plays into the anti-Star Trek thing, because instead of it becoming more peaceful and diplomatic and intellectual in the future, we just become more violent and hostile. The whole thing feels like an old 1950s American propaganda film, or even similar to like a modern day advertisement for the United States Army or Navy or all that stuff. It's done like that on purpose. It really makes you think, is being so military heavy and essentially fetishizing violence really the right thing to do? I think it's a smart film wrapped inside of a stupid action blockbuster. Now I've got a spoiler here. The ending scene where a telepathic character played by Neil Patrick Harris, he reads its mind and he says that it's afraid and it feels fear right now in that situation. And when he says that, all the soldiers start cheering and we're supposed to act like this is like the big triumphant scene of the movie. And that really does show, in my opinion, how the morals in this futuristic society are kind of backwards from the way it really should be, I feel like. In most films, this would be a bit of a twist of a scene, you know? Where you'd find this out, and then the main characters would sort of think about what they've done and be like, oh wow, maybe I shouldn't have done this. And some of the characters might even change their ways. Not in this film, though. These people are so over-militaristic and violent that they're completely okay with all this happening as long as it services their hyper-militaristic agenda. Note, these are just characters. I'm not making any sort of judgment call about the actors or the people who made this film. I know that Paul Verhoeven had a point, and this is all supposed to be satire and a bit of a joke. So I have to get to talking about the CGI. The CGI is awful. It's terrible and dated. It just looks so stupid. But that's a common complaint that you could make about a lot of films from this time. You know, an example is Godzilla in 1998, one of my least favorite films of all time, because it essentially took the Godzilla franchise and ruined it for Western audiences. It really did sort of take you out of the experience by seeing all these goofy looking bug creatures throughout the film, contrasted with these ultra serious characters. One thing I really wasn't expecting about the film was just how violent the whole thing is. I thought it was just going to be soldiers shooting around lasers at ugly looking CGI aliens that would shoot out green blood. You know, I thought that would be the extent of its violence, because people told me it was kind of violent. There was some of that, but it was also much more gruesome in other ways. There were scenes of people being shot in the head, whipped, heads exploding, limbs being burnt off, torsos ripped in half, and a knife being thrown through someone's hand, just to name a few. It was so cool. No, I'm just kidding. It was cool, but like in like a movie violence type of way. But it helped make the world of the movie feel much more real and realistic. I feel like that's something that Paul Verhoeven does a lot in his movies, where he takes over-the-top violence and uses a sort of way to show you this isn't a very good thing. This isn't something we should actually be doing. Example of this are RoboCop, which is an insanely violent film, and also Total Recall, another example of an unbelievably violent but also very smart film. So when this film was released in 1987, it got mostly negative reviews from a lot of critics. It only grossed $54.5 million in the US. Somehow it got nominated for an Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, which I don't understand at all. There must not have been very much good stuff in 1997. Since the release of the film, it's gained a bit of a cult following, and people started to like get it more. I feel like some people really didn't understand the subtext and satire of this film, because there's a whole series of these. There's 4 more sequels. From what I know about the sequels, they're absolutely nothing like the original film. They're much less smart, and there's a lot less subtext going on. It's just violence for the sake of violence, kind of what the first film was kind of trying to make fun of. These sequels just do that. There's been a proposed remake in the works that started in 2011. They started announcing that, but I don't think it's going to come out because I haven't heard very much about it personally, and I also can't find very much information on it in terms of if it's going to still come out at all. Paul Verhoeven himself had a lot of criticisms of it, saying that it kept a lot of the fascist and hyper-militaristic stuff from the original book that the film is actually based off of. I didn't mention that at all, but this film was actually based off a book, which is basically a propaganda piece about how amazing America is and all that stuff. Not quite America, but it's supposed to be an allegory for America. So I can't really think of much else to say about the film. Overall, I liked it. It was pretty good. I give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So that was my review of Starship Troopers. Now what am I going to watch tomorrow? I decided on watching another goofy space-themed film with aliens. I decided on Galaxy Quest, starring Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver, and Alan Rickman. Rest in peace, Alan Rickman. So yeah, make sure to check that out tomorrow. I'll be making that video. And also, check out the description. It's got my Letterboxd, the Letterboxd review for this film, where to buy this film, my friend Isaac Taylor's YouTube channel, and his Letterboxd. He's doing the same sort of challenge as me. I also have my friend John from the Netherlands' Letterboxd in there. And I also have Avant-Garde Criminal, who does all my thumbnails. His Facebook page is in there as well, so you can check out his art and support him. So thank you very much, guys, for watching this. This has been Ryan Reviews. Make sure to check out the video tomorrow. Thank you very much.